been in Doha, been in Amman, went to Aqaba, went to Ramallah, and now we're here. And I think I'm about halfway through. First, the point is we need to engage all parties. And the positions of the different parties here in the Middle East, all of them are different. Some may be subtle, some may be profound differences, so it's clearly the position of Israel is different. But it is important for us in Singapore to engage across the entire spectrum. Why? Because Singapore does have interests in the Middle East. There are economic interests, there are questions of technology, and of course, conflict anywhere, insofar as it represents a threat to global stability, economic threat, inflation, interdiction of sea lanes of communication. All these things have an impact on Singapore. So the point is, we have to engage. We have to understand not just what is going on, but why these things are happening, what are the thoughts of the leaders, and at the same time, to be able to clearly and unambiguously state our views. And as I said, our views are not identical, and even the views of all the leaders I've met amongst themselves are not identical. Now, today we've been in Israel, and there is a clear divergence of views. First, let me deal with where we agreed. What, in fact, all of us, Singapore and the Middle Eastern leaders whom I've met so far, in Doha, in Amman, have agreed that what happened on the 7th of October was a clear, flagrant, heinous act of terror. No ifs, buts, no excuses. That was an act of terror. Once you have innocent civilians being victimized, there's no other way but to call it out. The next point is that there is a right of self-defense. And as I've said before in Parliament, Singapore would have to assert a right of self-defense if something like this ever happened to us. But where we have a difference with Israel particularly, and that's why the discussions today have been, I would say, candid, frank, sometimes even brutal if need be. Where we have a difference is we believe that the Israeli military response has now gone too far. And I've communicated that, both to the Prime Minister and to the Foreign Minister and to the other Israelis whom we have met. But one sense which I've picked up, and I think all of you who have spent some time and have chatted to other Israelis here, is that the trauma of October 7 has been very profound on Israeli society. Their sense of security, their sense of safety, their confidence even with the arrangements that have been made by both the intelligence agencies, the military, the defense agencies. There has been a profound shock to their psyche and their emotion. So this is a society, in a very profound sense of both sadness, shock, and anger. There are hostages who are still being held. And I should add that, you've noticed that I've taken pains at every call to also repeat Singapore's stand that the hostages should be released immediately and unconditionally. It's not a matter of whether there are negotiations and a deal or no deal. So the point is, this society has been traumatized. And frankly, there are some messages that they are not ready to listen to, and they will not accept. Nevertheless, because our relationship with Israel has been long enough, and I would say close enough, that I told the Prime Minister we have to be honest. And we need to tell our Israeli friends when we have a divergence. And to be fair, I mean, they hear us out, but it will not change their plans. I'm afraid, I mean, I don't know whether the negotiations in Doha are going to bear fruit. I still hope that there will be an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. I hope the hostages will be released, but I don't know how close or when that will occur. But my sense of it now is that I don't think this conflict is over yet. You may get temporary interludes, but I think we have to be prepared that this may go on. I have tried to make the argument that there are two interrelated concepts here, security and peace. I think the top objective of any government facing a crisis is security. You could make the argument, however, that security is essential but not sufficient, because without peace, the threats to security are going to come back over and over again. But again, I think that conversation on getting the balance right between security and peace, it's not yet, it's not the right time for them to really reach a conclusion on this. And again, if you speak to more people down here, there is you need to deal with fear on one hand and also hope for the future on the other hand. And my concern is that after what's happened to both the Israelis and the Palestinians, right now it's fear and anger that prevails, and not an immediate sense of hope for the future. Nevertheless, for Singapore, I think what we need to understand is that the world is a messy, complex, difficult, and sometimes terrible place, and terrible things happen. We need to continue to engage all parties. We need to continue to be credible, constructive, helpful. I think our humanitarian assistance has been noted and welcomed by all parties, including the Israelis, and we will focus on doing more to help where we can. But don't have unrealistic expectations that peace will somehow quickly descend on this very troubled land.
Any follow-up questions?
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Specifically talk about Israel's plan to...
Yes, I've already expressed it in Parliament. I mean, we are deeply concerned that this offensive or planned offensive into Rafah will have a significant impact on the people who are currently clustered in that area. So we've expressed that concern.
And what was the response from the PM when you told him this today?
Well, I can't give you the details of his response, but as I said, what we're hoping for is at least an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. Deliver supplies, help people, overcome the current and immediate and urgent needs, and then deal with the situation that unfolds. And as I said, I'm pessimistic, but I hope I'm wrong.
Mr. Surya,
yes.
The Balakrishnan about the backlash from Singaporeans. How are you going to manage it?
No, it's not about a backlash. I mean, Singaporeans need to understand the importance of engaging across the board. And I'll have to explain that repeatedly, that Singapore cannot afford to, duck and cover. We need to face the world as it is, and we need to be able to convey our position accurately, not in a provocative way, but clearly and unambiguously. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'll continue with the rest of the visit to the other capitals in the Middle East. So I think generally Singaporeans understand why we need to engage. And there's no need to make any apology for that. We will continue to engage, and as the situation unfolds, we have to. Look, from a diplomatic point of view, there's always a need, even in this day of Zoom and emails, there is a need to have face-to-face conversations, to shake hands and get a sense of what your counterpart on the other side really cares about or is anxious about or hoping for. So we regularly engage in peacetime. I think in a crisis and in a war situation like this, it's even more important to engage. So I would make the argument that it is more important, not less. And we may not like what is happening. We may disagree with the decisions they are making, but we must engage.
Sorry, Minister.
Yes.
Just to go back on the Rafah thing.
Yes.
Because PM Netanyahu has said that he will not bow down to international pressure on this. So if it happens, actually, does that affect the ties?
No, we'll have to see what happens. In the end, he's the man who has to make the decisions for Israel. We are not the leaders of Israel. He is accountable to his people. And he will also be accountable for the consequences. So, we must have a realistic appreciation for what we can do. We've stated our position. We have done what we can on humanitarian assistance. We stand ready to do more. We hope for the best, but we also have to be prepared that this is yet another recurrent bout of violence in a very troubled part of the world.
So you talked about engaging all the different parties in the Middle East, right?
Yes.
So in the days ahead, can you share a sense of what you're expecting to talk about with the leaders, and how would that play in relation with the conflict?
Well, I don't prejudge what they will tell me. It helps that I've been around for a long time. I know or I have met directly and engaged most of the leaders. And I said this is a chance just to catch up directly and to deal with the immediate consequences of this conflict, as well as to discuss what arrangements would be most helpful the day after, or the day after the day after. But again, I want to make this point that Singapore has got good relations throughout the entire Middle East, and we should not take that for granted. You wonder why a tiny city-state far away in Southeast Asia is relevant down here. And they do care about what we think. They do want to engage us. They do want to have good relations with us. And we should do so, but without shying away from expressing our own views and being true to our own principles. And I think so long as we can continue to conduct foreign policy on this basis with the support of all Singaporeans, we are on the right track.